Good afternoon, Odonko and then Fezatu.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, I hope all is well. Yeah, I
Yes,
know. Yeah, I know where you're connecting from.
I'm in Accra.
Oh, okay, I am. So, how do you get to know about this program?
Okay, I just like some few minutes ago, I just saw it on my friend's status. I said,
Oh,
let me join before it gets to one, and I just joined.
okay, that's great. Thank you. What about you? Is it Selwyn? Oh, oh, okay. Selwyn also saw it from her friends. His her friend's status. Thank you for your feedback. We'll get in touch again soon. You're welcome, David. You can put it on the page, David. You can put it on the page that the meeting has started. So the rest of the team should join. You're welcome, Samuela, and thank you for joining this call. We're expecting more than this people to join. I'm not sure why they haven't joined yet. So let's wait for just 2 or 3 minutes. If they don't, we are going to start with this number. Hopefully they will join. And we're going to make this recording available too. So those who do not join early would get to learn later. But that doesn't mean that if you're already on the call, you should leave and then follow up on the recording, because joining the call live is going to give you an opportunity to ask questions that you may not be able to ask if you get access to the recording. I think we have quite a good number now. Okay, some people I'm still expecting that. Good afternoon to you all, and thank you for joining this meeting. Like you might have read, it is designed for the communications team for the SPA Ghana, Society of Petroleum Engineers, and I believe I can see that some of you are not SPE members, and so I'm very happy that you joined to learn, and I am hoping that this training is going to be impactful. Everybody's going to learn something. And by the time we leave here, even those who have never designed before would know how to do something for themselves and for their bosses or their businesses. Um, and maybe just a quick introduction in the next 3 or 5 minutes. Kindly introduce yourself, who you are, whether you're an SPE member or whether you are joining from outside of SPE. We will start with Faisal too. Are you on the call?
Hello.
Okay.
Good afternoon. I'm Faizatu Tete. I am a fresh graduate from UHAS, and I am not an SP member. Yes. This is how
Okay.
student.
If there is something else you want us to know, that would be great. But for now, I think that's okay.
Yes, I'm done. Thank you.
Who is on the call? David?
Hello, good afternoon.
Yes. We can hear you, David.
Yeah, so I said I actually went out for a while, so I didn't hear what you asked earlier.
Oh, we are just introducing ourselves. I think for the benefit of, is it even necessary? Anyway, maybe Samuela can introduce herself because we already know David. Hi, Samuela. Are you on the call? Rebecca Apia. Can you please introduce yourself to us? And perhaps how you got to know about this meeting. Michael James too. Can you?
Hello? 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 Hello?
Yes, hello. We can hear you. We can hear you.
Derek, you mentioned my name.
Yeah, please introduce yourself to us and tell us how you got to connect.
Oh, okay. My name is Rebecca, and the link was posted in a campus fellowship group, Destiny Family Campus group, and I decided to join.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much for joining. What about you?
Welcome.
Okay, if Michael James is unable to talk, sorry, Samuela. Okay. Um, please confirm if you can see my screen. Can someone confirm if you can see my screen?
Oh, yeah.
Excellent. All right, so without further ado, we will zoom into the workshop. My name is Derek. I'm a creative marketer and designer, and I've been doing this for like 7 or 8 years now. And then I happen to be the committee head for the communications and media um, at the Society of Petroleum Engineers Ghana section. And I have with me here my deputy, Lisa. And I think Laurentia is not on the call. I have another deputy. And most of the members or most of the people who have joined this call here are members of the Communications and Media Committee. And this training is to help us build capacity in designing so that we will improve overall in our designing and communication, and then also do away with some of the little mistakes we make when we are designing. And I don't know what else to say, but to start. So we are going to learn um, what graphic design is. We're also going to learn the principles and elements of graphic design. We are going to learn some of the softwares and then tools we can use in our design. We are going to also learn how to create and manipulate shapes as an element of design. Then we will see how to work with typography, learn about design composition techniques, how to export design for print and for digital processes. And then for the next 3 days, we will actually design, right, with the tools and with the elements and principles that we have learned today. So today is supposed it's not supposed to be a practical session. Today is going to be a theory session. But trust me, I believe this is the most important aspect of design because a lot of times people only learn the tools of design. They learn the tools, like they learn the softwares, the tools used in the design, but they don't really learn the principles and the elements that guide it. And so you realize that although they have an understanding of how to use a certain design tool, the output is usually poor because they've not really sat down or they've not really they don't have much knowledge of how to make a good design, right? So that's what this workshop is about. We're also going to learn ethics in design. We are going to learn the business side of design for those of us who would want to make money from our design. And then, if there is time, we'll learn some tips and tricks. I think that one is going to be in the sessions after today. So, how do we start design? It is important to get your design right from start. So, what is graphic design? Graphic design is a creative discipline that involves combining visual elements, typography, and imagery to communicate a message or convey information. So, the baseline of graphic design is to help in communication. Whenever you see a graphic design, the purpose of it is to aid in communication or in itself be the form of communication that somebody is trying to pass across. So we use graphic design in so many areas in our speeches, in our infographics, and in our design reports, in presentations, in websites. All of these places use graphic design to help convey information. So, what makes graphic design so important? Um, with the English is not coming, but since the internet began and since digitization began, graphic design has become so important because graphic design is a visual, right? Before, um, before computers were born or before what do you call it, digital devices were born, graphic design was still going on. So there were newspapers that utilized graphic design to make them visually appealing. There were books. All of those things needed graphic design to make them perfect. So if you've watched some of these antique movies, these olden days movies, you realize that even though they didn't have computers, they had ways of communicating by using billboards, posters, and all that. And they were designed. Even today, you see some of these designs around, the ones that have been hand drawn or handwritten. So, and I'm sure before, some of you have seen, before banners became popular, the printed banners became popular. You see signboards of cold stores with fish drawn, some of the fishes like they are having rickets and all that. But all of these things are examples of graphic design, even before digitization or computers were born. But today we use graphic design for branding and marketing. It helps us in our communication. Um, it also helps us in user experience enhancement. So if you check Facebook, right, for those of you who have used Facebook for a long time, in the beginning, Facebook isn't as appealing as it is now. It used to be like some, I don't know how to put it, but it was just plain. Like you could see that this is pure coded interface. Um, Full of text. You just hit a text, you issue a command, you get the response. Even the computers we used to use at first, the before they were recently they have been upgraded, before they got upgraded to the most current versions we are using now, you realize that those visuals weren't really appealing. But now, thanks to graphic design or thanks to user interface design, we have very appealing what do you call it, visuals, which helps us to communicate or which help us to navigate user interfaces very well. As another way that graphic design helps user experience is accessibility. So you realize that there are a lot of people. In fact, have you ever wondered how blind people use the phone? How do blind people use the phone? The reason blind people are able to use a phone is because there are assistive tools embedded in the phone or the computer device, which enables them to read or which enables them to use the phone just like any other person who can see would. So graphic design comes in to make all of these things work. You may wonder, like, how come graphic design is helping some people? But there are tools that make the person who cannot see have almost the same experience as the person who can see, based on the layout and then the additional let me say what do you call it, the additional text that are added to a user interface. I hope I'm making sense. Also, graphic design is used for education and then learning. Hold on a second. Where's my screen? Yeah, good. So graphic design is used for learning. When we were kids, right, you would realize that we were only drawn to the textbooks that had a lot of pictures, and the textbooks that had no pictures, we didn't like them. Even storybooks, novels, and all of those things. We like the storybooks that had pictures that look very appealing. That is the power of graphic design. So graphic design helps making education and learning easier. So, what are some of the disciplines and applications of graphic design? We use graphic design for printing. I mean, the things that we print, we design them before we print them. We use them for digital design, like um, what do you call it? The flyers that you've been seeing on social media. Even before you got to join this call, you saw a certain flyer posted on your friends' statuses in your groups. Those are graphic designs, right? We also use graphic design in branding and identity. I'm going to walk you through these things in subsequent slides. We also use graphic design in advertising. Every advertising company needs graphic design. Every business that wants to make money today, you will need a graphic designer, or you need to use the graphic designing to make your marketing or your advertising work. It's used for user interface and experience. So every website, every mobile app, every iWatch or wristwatch that uses a software uses graphic design to make its user um, interface. It's also used for prototyping before any digital product is developed. Before any digital product is developed, or before even physical products are developed, they are first sketched, usually by graphic designers, before they come into reality. So that shoe you are wearing today, it was designed by somebody using graphics before they could print it, or because it has to make sense even without if you want to see something in reality, you first have to visualize it, and one thing that is going to help you visualize it is to design it, right? So this is how graphic design helps. The clothes you wear, the shoes you wear, everything, the physical things you see were all designed before they came to reality. The buildings, architectural designs, they are all forms of graphic designing. Typography. Have you ever wondered how font styles are made? I always used to wonder, but it will interest you to know that font styles are designed. So you realize that this font style is different from this font style. Look at the J in this font style. Look at the J in this branding, and look at the J over here. You realize that they are different, right? It is because somebody designed it to make one look distinct from the other. And people who design font styles actually sometimes give themselves credit for it. So um, when you go to Microsoft, maybe when you go to Microsoft Word and then you are choosing a font style, you realize some of the font styles have names, right? It's because people designed them and they are the way they are. It's used for illustrations like logos. This item you see over here is an illustration, right? It was designed. It is also used for motion design. You are going to see examples of them soon. So there's an example of a Prince design that was made through graphic design. This is also a digital design. It was shared online, right? It didn't need to be printed to become a graphic design. It was shared online, but it's still it's made possible because somebody had to design it. This is for branding and identity. So you realize that um, a quick one, branding and identity. Branding is what your brand is known for, right? Branding is what your brand is your value, that the value that you aim to deliver to your clients or your customers. And the identity are the things that represent your brand. So your identity include the things like your logo, your labels, your packaging, your website. All of those things are brand identities and not your brand itself. And so when it comes to brand identities, graphic design plays a key role in here. By the way, this is a project that I designed for myself. It didn't come to reality. I'm hoping we are going to start this business soon. If you're interested, you can hit me up. That's just by the way. So this is also for advertising. This is a spring roll flyer. The person is advertising their spring roll. Please, the prices are not the same anymore. This was designed about 2 or 3 years ago. So don't text the number because you see the prices are cheap. But you can call the number if you're interested. Advertising for the person. For UI UX, this is the website interface for the SP Africa Geothermal Workshop, and it was made possible through graphic design. So website design is a form of graphic design. I mentioned earlier that before Facebook wasn't nice to use. If those, or let me say, those who were born somewhere in 2015, 2020, if you were born at the time Facebook came, you wouldn't find it appealing because it doesn't really look appealing. But now it is very appealing, and that is because graphic design has improved, and that is because people have, or the developers have known the essence of a beautiful user interface to help the user experience. Like I mentioned, typography, all of these things were designed with curves and shapes and symbols. So this is also a motion graphic, right? Motion graphics are also forms of designs because for a design to move, motion graphic is simply a design which is moving around, or a design whose elements are moving around, or yes, a design whose elements are moving around. I want to play this for you to see how it looks like. This was designed, I think, 4 years ago or so. And the reason I chose this specific motion design example is because I developed this with Canva, and tomorrow we'll be learning Canva, and then I just want you to know some of the potentials of Canva.
Mensa Sabah Hall Alumni Association and Mensa Sabah Hall 60th Anniversary Planning Committee. University of Ghana presents Vikings Alumni Celebrity Platform Lecture with Dr. Owusu Efriye Akoto. Theme: Exploiting Agricultural Diversification to Fund Economic Development in Ghana. Date: 21st July 2023 at the City Conference Center, University of Ghana, Legon. Time is 3 p.m. sharp. In attendance will be Dr. Mohammed Ibn Chambers, former head UNOWA's chairperson, Dr. Grace Bediako, board chair, Ghana Statistical Service, guest of honor, and His Eminence Francis Albert Seth Nyonyo, alumni president. This event is brought to you by the Mensa Sabah Hall alumni.
Yeah, thank you very much. Like I mentioned, this design was made, this is a motion design, and it was made using Canva. And tomorrow you're going to learn more about that. So now that we've had an introduction into graphic design, what are some of the other things that we should know? What are some of the responsibilities of a graphic designer? As a graphic designer, before you start any process, or before you start any design process, you need to understand what your client is requesting of you. It is so, so, so important. If you have a request to design a flyer or a website or any other form of graphic content, you don't just jump into it. You need to ask for a client's brief. Let a client tell you what they want. And sometimes the way to make this easier is you as a graphic designer should have a set of questions that you ask your clients. And this is really dependent on the kind of designer you are. Maybe you are just a website designer, you don't design graphics. Maybe you are just a motion designer, you don't design graphics or you don't design websites. So your questions are going to be pertinent to the kind of design that you do. So if you have a client, you have a set of questions to ask the client so that you get clear instructions on what you're supposed to go about. And the reason this is important is if you don't understand the client and what they are looking for, you will do something with your own intelligence or your own creativity, and the clients wouldn't like it. And no matter how well you justify, the clients will just think you are not good at your job or you don't understand them. So it is always important to understand what your client is asking for or what your client is looking for. Sometimes to make it easier for the client to make decisions or to make it easier for the client to tell you what they're asking for, you can show them samples of your work. Maybe you have certain standards of your work. Um, you've done different kinds of projects, and each of those projects followed certain procedures, right? Or they had certain elements in them. You can show them to your client. What kind of design are you looking at? These are samples. Which one is closest to what you are looking for? These are some of the things that would help the clients make a better decision, and it's going to make your work easier. Otherwise, you keep iterating, you keep making corrections, and before you are done, the client's money is finished, but you are still making iterations. The second thing is to conceptualize and execute your design solutions. And sometimes the way to do this is to use storyboards. So before you start a design, after you have solicited your client's opinion or instructions, you need to sit down and conceptualize. You don't just get into the design. You need to plan. What are you going to require to make this possible? Sometimes you have to know how much time you've got on your hand to make this possible. And this is important because your clients are going to depend on you. Sometimes their work is urgent. If you don't have enough time, you realize that you'll be drained and you'll not be able to accomplish your request. You'll not be able to accomplish the request. So it's always important to audit yourself. What do you require for the design? How much time do you need to be able to do this design? What are the tools you will need to do the design? What frameworks are available for you to use? Are there inspirations you can draw? What websites or what other designs are similar to the projects you're about to work on? You look at those designs and see how best you can pick inspiration and then use them for your own design. And using storyboards will help you release when you use a storyboard. I'm going to show you a storyboard in a second. When you use a storyboard, it's going to take the stress off your mind onto a paper. Then you know what steps you are going to use to design your work. So there's an example of a storyboard. For instance, if you are designing a motion graphic, you can do a storyboard. I know not all of us are advanced to the point of using storyboards like this, but if you are able to use this, it really helps because then you don't have to think too much about what's next because you already have it on paper. There is another example of a storyboard, or let me say wireframe. Wireframe is what you want your design to look like before it becomes real. The people who use this the most are, user interface designers and developers, right? So when you do this, it gives you a clear picture of what you want your product or your designed product to look at. Then you know that you are making progress. Otherwise, you do one design because you don't have any plan to follow. You do one design, it's not nice. You do another design, you are doing a lot of trial and errors. Your work becomes scattered and it becomes difficult to complete your project. And I'm sure a lot of people have this experience. You start a project, but you never finish. That is because you don't have a plan to follow. And that is, you don't have a plan to follow. You don't have a plan that you have agreed on. It becomes easier to design if you have agreed on a plan, because then when you agree, then you come back to the drawing board and you realize that, although we have done what we have agreed, there can be some little change. You can always go back and then make the change, and you can track those changes. You can say that, okay, we wanted this, but we changed it to this. It becomes easier for you to track your changes and then make progress. But if you don't have any plan at all, the work becomes difficult. You you have sleepless nights, and it's not a very good place to be for a designer, because your mental health is also at stake. Also, you need to collaborate well with your clients as part of your responsibilities, and then your colleagues and your stakeholders. I always say that graphic design is not what it's not for one person. It is important that as a designer, you should have a team of people you work with. If they are not your permanent team members, at least somebody you draw inspiration from, a mentor or another designer who is equally good, or who's trying to learn from you, or you are trying to learn from. Always share ideas to see where the project is heading towards. If you work alone, it becomes stressful, but when you work with other people, it becomes easier. And always communicate with your clients. If your client gives you if your client makes a request, give them feedback on whether you are making progress or you're having challenges. That makes them have trust in you that, oh, at least even if I'm not getting the results now, have the assurance that the person is working. But if you're very silent, you're not saying anything, the client asks you, oh, I'm coming, give me 5 minutes. Graphic designers are corporates of this um, most of the time. Give me 5 minutes, give me 2 days, or give me tonight. By tomorrow morning, you get it. This dawn, you get it. But if you don't explain to them the challenges, they will think you are lying to them, and it becomes very difficult for you and the client. So, what are some of the principles and elements of graphic design? Before we continue, if there is a question, you can ask me. Is there any question at this point? Okay, silence means consent. So we will continue with our presentation. So, principles and elements of graphic design. This part, everybody needs to pay critical attention to. What are the elements of graphic design? They are the things that make up your design. Everything you see in a design are the elements. So on this page you are seeing, right? This page in itself is a design. It's a presentation, but it's also a design. And everything on this page that you see constitutes elements, and they are what constitutes the page. So we see elements of graphic design. We see a couple of text over here. We see a line over here. We see a human being over here. We see some things over here. They are all what constitute the design. So let's learn them what they are. So every design may have a line, right? And line are distinguished, or they are manipulated, or they come. Line can be manipulated in types, in thickness, and then in also direction to make a design look appealing, right? Also, every graphic design may have a shape. You would have to use shapes to be able to build as part of the building blocks of your design. And I'm going to show you examples over here soon. We have geometric shapes, you have organic shapes, we have, I think I repeated this over here. I repeated spaces down here. We have geometric and then organic shapes. Shapes are very important for you to be able to do your design. As part of the designing or the building blocks of design too, we have colors, right? Maybe I think I should just show you the example. So when you take a line, right? This is an example of a line. This thick bar you see over here is an example of a line. Over here, you may not interpret it directly as a line, but it is a line that has been thickened to look like a pole or whatever it is, this orange thing you see over here. And although it is a line, it is forming part of the design, which makes it visually appealing. Secondly, we have shapes. Now, shape is part of the line, right? But it's on its own, it's also an element of a design. When you look behind this gentleman over here, this thing around, this thing beneath him, it's a shape. I don't know whether it's a semicircle or it's a rounded rectangle or whatever, but it is a shape, right? And that forms part of the building block of the design, and that gives it appeal. Also, you see color. There are colors all over, many colors all over. And I'm going to show you something about color. That if you are a designer, okay, and you are designing, of course, graphic design is design. If you're a designer, try as much as possible to limit how much colors you use in your design so that your design will look appealing and then less busy. Now, don't ask me why I use too many colors in this design. I'm using it because for the purpose of the design. This is a design work or this is a design presentation, and I'm trying to make it as colorful as possible. So essentially, try to limit the number of colors you use in a design to make it less busy and then make it easy to read and then more appealing. But where it is necessary that you add many colors for the essence of it or for the sake of maybe, I mean, for the kind of design that you're doing, it is deliberate that you have to add more colors to it. Maybe you are a painter or you are a painting company or a paint manufacturing company and you want people to see the kind of paints you have. That one you don't have any problem adding a lot of colors to your design. That is understandable. But if you are doing something professional, something organic, it is better to, limit the number of colors you use. Or let me say, use the colors that are related to your brand or that help to communicate the information you're trying to convey so that you don't worry too many people with too many colors. Also, typography. It's also an element of design. You see, there are different kinds of font styles, two different font styles over here. This font style is the Montserrat font style, and this is the Nexa font style. There are different font styles that come together to form this design. And some of the ways to apply font style is for the headings, the body, the captions, the what do you call it, the quotes, right? Different font styles for different parts of the design. But another thing about the font style, similar to the color, is don't use too many colors. Don't use too many font styles in one design. The rule of thumb for me is not to use more than 2 font styles in a design. So when you go through this entire presentation, you realize that I've used only 2 primary font styles. I've used the Montserrat for the headings, and then I've used the Nexa for the body, right? Where there is an extra typography, it is because I want to illustrate something else to you, right? So that is it for the typography. Also texture. Look at this. Look at this page. Look at this page. Look at the background of this page. It is plain white, right? Pure white, very smooth. Nothing is happening to it. And then look at this page, the background of this page. It looks like paper. It has added another effect to the design, right? I don't know if it is nice for you, but it's nice for me. But the essence of me adding this is to show you what texture feels like. So I would say this background has a smooth texture, and then this background has a rough paper-like texture. Texture adds to the appeal of your design, and if you're able to master the use of texture, it's going to make your design look very, very appealing. For those of you who saw the graphic design that was used to advertise this workshop, you realize that there was some texture in the flyer. I don't know if I can show it to you now, but you can make a reference. There was some texture, a noisy kind of texture in the flyer. Maybe in the subsequent workshops, some of the designers are going to explain some of these things to you. All of these things are textures that add to the aesthetics of the design. Also, transparency. You see little semicircle over here, this donut, semi-donut over here. You can see features of transparency in there. You realize that although the semi donut is green, you can slightly see the orange shape inside it. This is possible because we have made this element transparent, and transparency is part of design. It adds to design process. Hopefully in the workshops we are going to show you how to apply some of these things exactly. But you see, everything you add to your website and everything you add to your design, every element you add to your design should be meaningful. You don't just add things because you know how to use those tools or you know how to add those elements or you understand those elements. You should add them because they help you convey the information. They are aesthetically appealing, right? And then also space. We have positive and negative or white spaces. Space is space. Everything you see over here is happening in space, right? And there are positive spaces and there are negative spaces. Negative spaces are also called white spaces. So positive spaces are all the space of your design that are covered by an element. So the space covered by this guy is a positive space. The space covered by this line is a positive space. The space covered by this heading, this body, this small line over here, this semicircle, this orange shape over here, they are all positive spaces. They are spaces that have been covered by elements in your design. And negative spaces are the other spaces in your design that are not covered by anything. So these are also called white spaces. White spaces not because it is color white, but white spaces because it's a let me say it's a symbol of breathability in your design. So the essence of having white spaces or negative spaces in your design is to help make the design more appealing, make it easy for people to read, or make it easy for people to read your design, make your design breathable, right? When we say your design should be breathable, we mean your design shouldn't be too busy, it shouldn't be too crowded. You see some people's graphic design, every part of the design has taken something. Every part of the design has either a picture or a text or a logo or something, and it makes it difficult for you to see the main elements of the design. With negative spaces, you'll be able to achieve easy readability and then breathability for your designs. Um, yes, yes. So I think this is going to be for another slide. But that is all about elements of graphic design. If there are other elements of graphic design that you can also drop it in the comment section so that we will all learn them. But these are the very important ones that you need to learn about. Then we go to principles of graphic design. Principles of graphic design. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Yeah. Oh, David has a question. Sorry, David, please ask your question.
All right. So on the textures too, can we add 2 or more textures to the design?
Well, I don't know the kind of textures you want to add, but one thing for me, or the rule of thumb for me, is don't make your design look too busy. If the textures are similar or they are related or like they look alike and will help you convey your information, you can add them. But if it's going to make it too busy or if it's going to make it look too crowded, you don't need to. You see, in designing, one thing that you need to want to achieve is simplicity. Your design should be very simple so that it will be able to communicate. And there is one thing that I've come to learn in my journey of graphic design, and this might be unrelated, but it's one truth that I've come to know. The rich men or the big clients, right? They don't like busy designs. The very big clients, those who are focused on those who are very particular about their branding, they don't like very complicated design. Very, very simple designs, and then you go your way. But it's the broke people who usually like very expensive design. This is not to shade anybody, but if your designs are too complicated, it becomes very difficult to relate with. So try as much as possible to limit how much elements you use in your design. Just use enough, right? And don't get me wrong, it's a design process. There is no standard way of using elements. the most important thing you need to know are the elements of the design and the principles of the design. When you know these things, you apply your wisdom and your creativity to it. But some of the things we cannot measure, or some of the things we cannot decide for other people, are how creative they use the elements in their tools. So use it the way you want to use it, but at the end of the day, you should follow the principles and the elements that we are talking about, and it's going to help you achieve a very beautiful design. I don't know if that answers your question, but
Yeah, it answers it very much. Thank you very much.
okay, great. I'm happy about that. Let us continue. So, what are some of the principles of design? Principles of design, unlike elements, which are the physical or tangible parts of your design, the principles of the design are the intangible parts that communicate. Uh, let me find my words well. The elements of the design are the physical ones, the lines, the shapes, the texture, and the spaces, and all of those things. They are the things you can see, or maybe probably you can touch. But the principles of design, they are guidelines, or like the word itself, they are principles that help you use those elements correctly. So you can know all the elements of designs, but if you don't follow certain principles in the design process, it becomes difficult for you to um, achieve very, very beautiful designs. And one of them is balance. I forgot to add some. Let me see. One of them is balance. Balance is having a symmetrical, asymmetrical, or radial. I'm going to show you an example of balance, right? And then also contrast is how visible the elements in your design are and how different they are from each other. Contrast. And then hierarchy is also arranging the elements of your design in order of importance, or in the order you want people to see them. Then unity is being able to achieve consistency and using patterns, and then using the elements in your design to be able to make something that how do I put this? With unity, right? You'll be able to, all you're trying to do is to make sure that the elements are cohesive and consistent, and you are creating something that is harmonious and then integrated. So you realize that every element you use in your design, it is not an alien to another, or it is not a black sheep. Let me use, for want of better words, right? It's not a black sheep in the design. If you are designing something like this, right? And I come to put, let me see if I can illustrate it to you over here. If I am designing something like this, okay, and then I come and drop maybe this blackboard over here, right? If I drop this blackboard over here, can you see the illustrations I'm making? Can you see the illustration I'm making?
Yes. Can you see it very good?
Good. So if I drop this blackboard over here, it makes a little sense, right? Because the guy is having a paintbrush and then he's putting it here, and then it's adding up to it, right? So it makes a little sense that I'm adding a blackboard over here. I'm achieving some kind of unity in this design. But instead of a blackboard, or maybe I don't look for a blackboard, I go and look for something like scissors, and I put it somewhere here. What is this thing doing in the design? Clearly, there is no unity, there is no harmony in the elements of the design. So it's not necessary to add this over here. It needs to go off. So if you want to achieve unity, you have to make sure there's consistency. And you realize that throughout the design, even though all the colors, I've used different kinds of colors, or I've used different colors, there's some kind of consistency, because if you see orange here, there's a likelihood you are going to see orange in another design. If you see green here, there's a likelihood you are going to see green in another design. So there's some kind of consistency in there. That's all the unity I'm talking about means. right? Achieving cohesiveness and consistency, and then also harmony in your design. I cannot give you dictionary definition of harmony and what do you call it, all of that. Maybe you should Google it by yourself, but I'm sure the illustration or the examples I've given suffice for an explanation. There are other principles of design that you need to pay attention to. And this one, I did it myself. Okay. This particular one, I did it myself. Or let me say, I I I thought of it myself. It's something that I like to advise people to do. Margins. Okay. Let me add it here. Let me add it here. Margins. Maybe it will fall under the elements of design, but for the sake of education, let's just keep it here because we've passed that place. All right. The margins may qualify for the negative spaces too, but I just want to emphasize on it. What I've realized among designers is that they don't like to use margins. Meanwhile, when you were in nursery, when your nursery teacher wants you to write something, they will ask you to draw a margin. Even when you were in SHS, they'll give you answer sheets and they'll tell you, do not write beyond these margins, right? There's a margin on the left, there's a margin on the right, there's a margin above, there's a margin below, and they'll instruct you not to write beyond those margins. And if you write in them, they are going to attract sanctions. If you are a nursery child and then you write before your margin or you don't draw a margin at all, my time they'll pull your ears or they'll use rulers to hit your fingers, right? And I'm sure quite a number of you have the same experience, except those who went to the international schools. Why is it so necessary to use margins? Because it enhances the appeal of your design. But sometimes you see graphic designers trying to utilize every aspect of the design, every space in the design. And a typical example is this. Maybe instead of creating margins like this, right? The person wants to let their design start right from the edge of the screen. They want to let their heading be right above. They want to let the human being be here. And it's nice. So, I mean, it makes sense. You're able to read everything, but in design, it doesn't look so appealing. So it's very necessary that as part of your white spaces, you always create margins for your designs to make it visually appealing. At least give credit to your nursery teacher or your high school teacher for teaching you how to use margins and apply them in your design. So we've spoken about balance. I'm going to show you examples of balance. And then somebody wants to say something? Okay. So we've spoken about balance, and I'm going to show you examples of balance. When we were talking about balance, we said we have symmetrical, asymmetrical, and radial. So this flyer, okay, is a flyer I did for a client some years ago. Don't laugh at me. It's been a number of years. I don't know if it's good or not, but it's nice for me. Okay. So this is an example of a flyer with an asymmetrical balance. So with balance, we are trying to make sure that when you want to achieve balance, it's one of three things. Either you want when you divide your flyer into two, or when you design your what do you call it? Give me the English. When you design your artwork into two, okay, either the elements on this side of the flyer are equal to the elements or the weight of the elements on this side of the flyer, or this side of the flyer is heavier and then this side is lighter, or there is some kind of radial what do you call it? Hey, please, it doesn't mean graphic designers don't understand English. Oh, I'm just finding it hard to find my words. So if you divide your graphic or your artwork into two, if you want to achieve balance, one of the ways is to put most of the items to the left, and then let this place have some kind of breathing space. Another way is to fill both sides of the design to achieve a symmetric balance. And then the other one is to have some kind of a radial, what do you call it, radial effect in there. Maybe the examples will help me explain it better. So this is an example of asymmetrical. So you realize that there is a lot of text on this side, or there's a lot of elements on this side, but this elements just has a few. It just has one human being and then one element. But the design still looks good, right? Everything is arranged in order. You don't have so many things crowded. In fact, the design is a little crowded because there are a lot of text in there, but the designer requested it. I didn't do it. Left for me alone, I wouldn't have done this number of text. But even though the texts are bulky, or even though there's a lot of text, you realize that there is some kind of balance. To this side, all the text are here, all the picture is here, and then a couple of other illustrations are there. One side is a little heavy, the other side is not so heavy, but there is a balance. Balance doesn't mean equal size. Balance means what do you call it? A balance doesn't mean equal size. Balance means like the right amount of what do you call it? The right amount of something in a given situation or in a given space, right? So let me just say balance is sort of equity, right? Not equality. All right. So there's another example of a design where we achieved symmetry. I'm looking for it for you. Oh, I showed you guys some design, right? So when you look at this website, right, we've been able to achieve some kind of symmetry, although it's not so equal. You realize that this part of the design is heavy. This part of the design is also heavy, or let me say almost heavy. In this case, there is some kind of symmetry in there, some kind of it is symmetrical, right? When we say symmetrical, it means both sides have equal weight, or both sides have equal weights or sizes. Asymmetrical means one side is bigger than the other, or one side is more voluminous than the other. And then when you check this design, where is the spring roll design? When you check this spring roll design, you realize that there is a radial effect over here. When you divide it into two, you are not necessarily going to get one part more, one part less. And you're not going to get both parts equal, but there is a certain kind of radial effect happening around here. So that is just, these are just illustrations to show you how you can achieve balance in your designs, right? So that is it for balance. Okay, what's the time? It's 1:59. Maybe in the next 30 minutes we should be done, then we can continue tomorrow. Maybe 30 minutes or 15 to 30 minutes we should be done, then we'll be out of here. So there is also, I can't find my, when we say contrast, okay, what does contrast mean? Contrast means how differentiated each element is from the other. Take a look at these two elements over here. We have two elements. We have a circle and then the text. And usually you have your text on your background or some kind of shape, or anything. And designs are in layers. So for those of you who use Photoshop, you realize that the Photoshop uses a concept of layers to do designs, right? So one element will lay on top of each other, and then it happens like that until you finish with your design. So this is an example of a design. Between these two designs, which of them is more easy to see? I would say it is this one. I would say it's the one with the white text, because it is easy to distinguish the text from the background. But with this one, although you can see the ABCD, the wavelength of, let me not use a, although you can see the text in there, it is not clearly distinguished from the background. Or let me say that the colors are almost the same, or it's difficult for you to see or differentiate this color from the other because they are close to each other. Let me just say so. They are close to each other. So it is very important that when you are designing, your elements are distinguished from each other, or they are distinguished from each other in terms of sizes, in terms of colors as well. Why is this important? I mentioned earlier that design is used to enhance user experience. And one of the ways to enhance user experience is to ensure accessibility for people with disabilities. Not all of us are the same. There are people who have certain kind of color blindness. There are people who cannot see all the colors that our naked eyes can see. Some people they can see blue, some people they can't see the color blue. They see the color blue as some other color. Some people see the color red as some other color. Some people their eyes cannot see green. Their eyes can only see blue and then red. Some people their eyes cannot see blue or red. They can only see, yellow, or or they interpret those colors in different ways. Um so in your design, you need to make sure that every element you use is easy for people to read. And you may think that this is far from you, but there are people who have these I won't say disabilities, who have these challenges. There are people who have these challenges that may not be able to communicate with you, or that they themselves they don't even know that they have those challenges. So it is important that as part of your way to ensure maybe diversity and inclusion, you make sure that and to ensure accessibility, digital accessibility, you make sure that all your designs have very sharp contrast so that they will be visible, they will be easily separated from each other. And for those of you who have been doing designs with, sometimes I give you such feedback that maybe the text you are using is too light or too faint for the kind of background that you use. This is what I mean by the correction that I give to you. You are not achieving contrast, and so you should seek to achieve contrast with the designs. Another thing about the principles of design is hierarchy. Okay, hierarchy. Hierarchy is arranging your elements in order of visual importance, or in order of visual importance, to give or to create a certain kind of flow in how your reader goes through your artwork. So when you take this design, okay, you realize that although there are a lot of texts, they are in different sizes, they are also in different colors. That is what we mean by hierarchy. So we have the heading over here, we have the subheading, we have another subheading, we have the body text, we have other body text over here, we have social handles. So when you take this particular design, what is the first thing you see? Arguably, the first thing you see when you take this design is either the text, the big text, or the human being over here, right? Actually, you see the text first, and then you come and see the human being, because the human being is trying to complement the information this big text is trying to give. Every text in your design communicates something, and you should make sure that they do justice to whatever information they are trying to convey. So what it means is that you don't misplace some text when other texts are, you don't misplace some text for others. So if there is a text that is supposed to communicate the main idea of your design, that text should be the biggest, followed by the ones that sort of hook the people into it, the subheadings, and then before you go to the body. So when you go to this website, for instance, we have the first thing you see over here is the design. Then you come and see the pictures. Then you come to what you call it. You come to the buttons over here. It is in a certain hierarchy, right? So it is. So you see that over here, even though we have joined us for the 2026 SPE Africa Geothermal Workshop, although this one comes before this one, we want people to see what the whole website is about. It's about the 2026 SPE Africa Geothermal Workshop. This one is going to only help you make sense of what the idea is about. Like the join us for there is going to help you make meaning, or it's going to make the headline a sentence, a meaningful sentence. But even without this thing, you still know that this is about SPE Africa Geothermal Workshop. So it is important to have hierarchy in your design to communicate the various, so that every element communicates just what they have to communicate. Just to elaborate further, you cannot make the what do you call it, the SPE Ghana web address and then the social media addresses the biggest part of these designs. The main idea over here is GH Buys. And from GH Buys, where do we go to? We go to the dates. It's happening on 20th to 22nd May in Accra. Then, before somebody may even bother to look at what the theme is about, usually people go to the event, they go to the details when it's happening, what time it's happening, before they come to read extra details about it. So you want to make sure that it is in that kind of hierarchy. I'm not saying that once you make some bigger than the others, people won't read the smaller ones before the bigger ones. But this is just a way of guiding people to go through the script or the design that you have. I hope that is okay. I think we are done with the principles of design too. If there is another one called repetition, right? Repetition is repeating certain elements in your design so that they would have, it's also part of the unity aspect of it, right? You repeat more, you repeat some of the elements more to be able to achieve a certain kind of design. Okay, so if there is a question over here, or if you have any question to ask at this point, please, you may ask. Otherwise, we'll move to the next slides. We are almost done. Not almost done. We are about to be done. Is there any question? If you have a question, please, you can raise your hand and ask. Okay, there is no question. So let us proceed. Okay. So what do you need to start graphic designing? Some of the things you need to start a design process are the elements which I've spoken about, and then the principles that guide the elements that you use to do your design. But you also need some tools to be able to design with. And before we get there, one thing I'd like you to know is that there is no single perfect design software for all design solutions. Some people ask, so if I want to be a designer, which designing tool can help me achieve all of my designing needs? There's no one tool to be able to, there's no one tool to use to help you accomplish all your design needs, but there are definitely tools that can help you achieve a lot of your design needs. And one of such tools is Canva. We are going to get there in a bit. So as a designer, I mean, there are several things you are going to design in your journey. You are likely to design websites, you are likely to design motion graphics, you design logos, you design flyers, billboards, name them, all the things that you design, reports, magazines, all of these things require different tools, right? And some of the software companies have done well to integrate a lot of these tools into one software, which will help you access all of them. But even then, when you are using it, you would realize that you would have to use different interfaces for different aspects of the design you are trying to achieve. So if you're a designer, a good designer, you will know the kind of tool you will need for what design. For instance, if you want to build a website, okay, if you want to build a website, some of the tools you may need are Photoshop or Figma. But if you want to design a simple flyer, you may not need to go to Figma. You just need a Photoshop or you need a Canva to do that. If you want to design a logo from scratch, maybe Canva can give you templates to be able to start with, or maybe you can just put one or two texts together to be able to achieve a simple logo. But if you want to design a detailed logo, you can't use Photoshop for it. You also can't use Canva for it. What you may need is Corel Draw, right? Because a logo uses uses vector, has some vector features attached to it that you may need a vector tool to be able to design. So if you're a designer, you need to know the right tools to use for the right work. Here are some of the design tools that are available today. We have Photoshop, it's for image editing, manipulation, and then also photo retouching. We also have Corel Draw, it's used for vector graphics and then editing high quality designs. So let me see if I'll be able to explain what so let me show before I even continue. So there's in graphic design, there are certain ways, for want of better words, in which images are represented. We have the pixels and we have the vectors, right? We have the pixels and then we have the vectors. I didn't intend to explain this, so pardon me if you don't really understand, but I'll do my best to explain it to you. Maybe in the design process, we are going to, when we do the practicals from tomorrow, we'll be able to understand them better. So when we talk about pixels, an image that is formed from pixels is when tiny blocks, okay, come together to form that image. Just have it in your mind. When you put small pieces of blocks together, they come to form a house, right? That is how images are formed in pixels. But in vectors, the image is formed by plotting. So for those of you who thought that after JHS or after SHS you are running away from maths, there is maths in graphic design. Some of you learn some of you learn vectors and plotting in school, right? You are using vectors and things to plot in your graphs. It is the same idea or the same concept that is applied in vector graphics, right? So instead of using blocks to form an image, in this case, you are now using points, right? You are using points to form an image. So just have these two things in mind. One of them comes to be able to achieve pixel images, you need blocks to be able to form that image. And to be able to achieve vector images, you need to use points. Let me see. No, there is no time for me to illustrate to you. Maybe tomorrow we are going to explain that. So just a rule of thumb for you to know whether an image is vector or for you to see if an image is in pixels. When you expand your image, when you expand the image on your phone, or when you expand the image on your phone to the biggest what you call it, if you zoom in your image, right, check the sides or check the quality of the image, you realize that it is a little blurry when you try to zoom in too much, but when you bring it back it becomes nice and sharp, right? So with if you want to know whether you are seeing vectors or pixels, when you zoom in too much, you realize that there are boxes in there. For those of you who use Photoshop, you realize that when you zoom into an element, when you zoom into your Photoshop workspace, right, you realize that there are tiny boxes. They are the pixels that come together to form the image. And the more the pixels, the sharper the image. The lesser the pixels, the less sharper the image. So those of you who have been playing Mario Kart, those of you used to play Mario Kart and the Mortal Kombat on that small gaming console, you realize that the images were looking box. Those of you who have been playing bricks, those who used to play bricks, you realize that those images were box. It is because of the number of pixels in the image. So you realize that the more pixelated the more pixels there is in an image, the sharper it becomes. That explains why when somebody sends a picture to you on WhatsApp, the quality is reduced. When the quality is reduced, it means that a lot of pixels have left, or it has the number of pixels that form the image have reduced. That is why the image has become low. And when the image is sharp, you realize that it is because there are a lot of pixels in the image. So that's just about it. So sometimes when somebody is sending something to you on WhatsApp, we tell them, oh, don't send it to me as a normal image. Send it to me as a file, because when you send it as a file, the pixels are preserved. So that is a little idea about pixels and then vectors. We'll explain more from tomorrow. And there is also Figma. So Adobe Photoshop is best for editing pixel images, and then CorelDRAW is best for editing vector images. Although CorelDRAW can edit pixel images too. It does both pixel and then vectors. Then there is Figma. Okay, Figma is usually used by UI UX designers for building wireframes for digital products like websites, application softwares, and all of those things you use when you are interacting with your phone. That is what Figma is known for. But it can also be used for graphic design. And then we have Affinity. Affinity is almost like Photoshop, or let me say the twin of Photoshop. And the good thing about Affinity is that it is free. It is now free since it was acquired by Canva late last year, right? So whatever Photoshop can do, Affinity can also do the same thing. So Affinity can help you design your graphics. It can help you, basically everything you can do with Photoshop. Affinity has features to be able to do the same things for you. And unlike Photoshop, which cannot edit vectors, Affinity can edit vectors. So you cannot use Photoshop to design detailed logos, but you can use CorelDRAW to design detailed logos. You can also use Affinity to design detailed logos because it has various workspaces within which can help you make such designs possible. Then we have Canva. Canva is my favorite tool so far. It is an easy to use design software for professionals and also beginners. So if you're somebody who doesn't know how to design at all, you can still use Canva, because even if you don't know how to use an element in a design, there are templates for you to use to make your design work very easy. So Canva is a go-to for me. There are several other tools. We have Adobe, After Effects, we have Premiere Pro, we have InDesign, Photoshop, Experience Design, AI. So you realize that what Adobe is trying to do is that they are creating different softwares for different needs. So you can use Adobe Photoshop for image editing, but you can use Adobe After Effects for for motion design. You can use Premiere Pro for editing movies or videos. You can use InDesign for what do you use InDesign for? Anyway, you can use Photoshop for editing. Yeah, I've mentioned it already. You can use Experience for editing. You can use the Experience Design for editing the wireframes and then the website's UI interface and all that. That is what the Experience Design is for. And then the Illustrator. So because Adobe Photoshop cannot edit a logo or design a logo, they have the Illustrator, which is dedicated for designing vector-based materials. So every vector-based materials that you cannot use Photoshop to design, you can use the Illustrator to do so. There's Canva, there's CapCut, there's DaVinci Resolve. DaVinci Resolve is specifically for video editing, but it can also achieve certain graphic design needs. There is Webflow for editing websites. There's Wix for editing websites, which is my favorite website editing platform. Then there is the CorelDRAW. But in this workshop, we are going to focus on only these four things. We are going to focus on Canva. We are going to focus on Photoshop, Figma, and then Affinity. So tomorrow we are going to learn how to use Canva and then Affinity. Then the next day we are going to learn how to use Photoshop, which will be taught by Andy. He's on a call. And then on the last day, we will learn how to use Figma, all to achieve our graphic design needs. And Figma will be taken care of by Justice. He's also on the call, I think. Yeah, he's on the call. All of these will be achieved. All of these would help us achieve design. So I'm hoping that by the time we finish this workshop, you'll be able to design logos, flyers, letterheads, business cards, reports, books, anything at all that you require to design. Unfortunately, we may not be able to cover web designing because it is not part of this. It's not part of the focus. Maybe sometime we are going to organize another tutorial for that, how to design a website. Maybe Justice may be able to cover it in Figma, but for this workshop, the focus is for the elements or the artworks that I've mentioned. That is the flyer, the logo, the letterheads, business cards, reports, and what have you. And before we conclude, okay, before we conclude, maybe this is the last thing we'll talk about before we leave here. The rest of them, we'll talk about them tomorrow. You should know the business aspect of design, okay? This is the business aspect of design that you need to know. And I'm going to rush through them. Number one, you shouldn't just know how to use the design tools. You should learn other aspects of graphic designing. So it's not enough to learn how to use Photoshop, learn how to use Canva. If you know how to use Photoshop and you don't know the elements of design like line, shape, texture, all of that, and you also don't know the principles of design like unity, coherence, unity, coherence. What again was there in the hierarchy, contrast, and all that? If you don't know how to use those things, it doesn't matter how good you are with Photoshop tools, you may not be able to bring out a good design. So it's important to learn the theory aspect of design as much as the tools that you use for the design. Also, as a designer, attention to detail is negotiable. It's not negotiable. When I'm going through town, because I'm a graphic designer, I pay a lot of attention to billboards and signboards. And I realized that most of them have a lot of mistakes. As a graphic designer, you don't leave the correctness of the text or the content of your designer to of your design to the client. It is also your responsibility to see that every content that has been given to you is correct. What it means is that if your designer gives you something to design, if your client gives you something to design, you have to read through it to see that it is correct and you won't have problems. Sometimes you should also be able to offer suggestions on what will work for the design. So that is where attention to detail comes into play. You have to really pay attention to mistakes that may have been overlooked by your client so that you also don't it doesn't slip through your fingers to go into the final work. As a designer, I've made a lot of such mistakes, and it's very painful to know that you spend so much time working on something only to print the work, expensive work, and then you realize that there is a mistake in there. You either have to reprint or you have to post it there for everybody to see how ignorant you are. It's a very painful thing to do. Thirdly, you have to be your own competition. And by being your own competition, comparing yourself, you are comparing your past to your present self and to your future. So you look at the designs you have done in the past. How are they? Look at the designs you are doing now. Have you improved? What have you learned new? And then what would you like to become? Or what kind of height would you like to attain in your design career? I mentioned that I started this about 8 years ago, and when I look back at some of the designs I made, I wonder if I'm the one who did them. Very, very awkward designs, but it is good because I know that now I've learned, and then I'm not going to make such mistakes again. And I'm still learning, right? Designing is not a destination. If you want a perfect designer, there's nothing like a perfect designer, or there is nothing like the final destination in designing. There is always something new to learn, especially since there are a lot of tools coming up, a lot of technology coming up that would require us to adapt to them. There is always something to learn, and you shouldn't um, try to compare yourself to other people, but to yourself, how much of improvement you are having. Also, you should practice daily, and if you can't practice every day, practice often. If you practice every day, there is a guarantee that you're going to be an expert in graphic design, right? And you're also going to build confidence to be able to teach other people. Build relationships because referrals are real and they are nice. I've been boasting that since I started graphic design, I've not really posted an advert of myself doing graphic design before. But almost every time I have a client that I'm working for. That is because there are people who know me and they refer me to other people to work with, or they refer other people to me to work with. And at all points in time, there is some work to do, but I don't post my flyers. And so it's important to keep relationships so that if you want to make more money from um, your design, you get referrals as a result of your relationships. Also, you should see every project like your only project. What I'm trying to say is that when you take a project, don't think that because there will be another project, you attend to this one shoddily or you do it by heart, you do it anyhow. No, that is not the quality of a good designer. if you have a project, work on it like it's the only project, and like it's the only project that is going to secure you another project. Because people see things, your clients, not all clients may be able to communicate their dissatisfaction. Some of them will be dissatisfied, but they'll not tell you, and they will never come back to you. So always make sure that you are giving the most critical attention to every project that you have. Also, you should get enough inspiration before every project. Before every project, see what other people have done in the same space. There is nothing new under the sun. I'm sure you've heard this 1,000 times. People have done what you have done before, and you are not the best graphic designer in the world. There are people with more experience than you who have done the things your clients are asking you to do over and over. Go to them, learn from them. Go to Pinterest. When I'm designing and then I'm out of ideas, one of the first places I go to is Pinterest. I go to Pinterest, type the kind of design I want to do, maybe church flyer or um, event flyer or something. You see a lot of them, and you take inspiration, and it will guide you on what to do. And by taking inspiration, I don't mean you should copy dito dito. There is nothing wrong with copying someone else's work, but when you copy it, you should copy it with style, such that it won't be so obvious that you copied from someone, but you apply your own creativity to make it look unique. But if you want to copy word to word, element to element, the design that somebody has done, it makes you unoriginal. It makes it difficult for people to trust you, because the design you are doing for me, if I'm a client and I come to you, maybe before I came to you, I went to look on the internet for inspiration. So if I come to you and you design something for me, and that design you did for me, you copied it from the internet, because I've already seen it, I know that it's not an original work from you, and I won't trust you. So it's always necessary that even though you are going to copy, you make your work unique. Unique. It is not a crime to copy, but don't copy dito dito. You should also be able to relate with clients well, and then as part of your relationship with clients, you should set boundaries. Know who you should tolerate. Okay. I'm not saying you should be friends with your clients. You should be best friends with your clients. No, business is business, friendship is friendship. There are some of your clients who are your friends, but when it's time for business, you should know that it's time for business and you should deal with it accordingly. There are some people who will come to you, oh, do this for me for free, do this for me for free. I want to start a new business. I need a flyer for free. No, no, it's not a good thing. You know why? Because they are going to start a business and they are going to make a lot of money. So if you are going to design for them and you are going to make a lot of money and they're not going to give you your share, or they are not going to pay you for the work, that is unfair, right? So you should always make sure that you have value for your money. You should make sure you set boundaries in your relationships, and you should also make sure that you have very good relationship with your clients. Sometimes you can check up on your clients, call them, you tell them, oh, it's been a while. You are just checking up on them. Not because you want them to give you a gig, but because you are genuinely trying to check up on them. And when they know that they have a relationship with you, the next person, the first person they'll think about when they have another project is you. And I've had this experience several times. So please build good relationship with your clients. And the last thing we will talk about is to rest. Please rest. um I've had enough experience to know that not resting can affect your health, your physical health, and then your mental health. Okay, I've been to the hospital several times, done a lot of scans that is reserved for adults or people in their menopause and all that. And sometimes the doctors even ask, "What? How old am I?" They say I'm too young to be suffering from conditions like this, and then that is just because at a point in time I was going so hard on myself, refusing to rest, trying to satisfy every client, sleeping, having sleepless nights, doing so many things at the same time. And it is not a healthy place to be in. So, for most of the designers or the creators or creatives that I work with, I always try to tell them to rest, because it is one of the best things you can do for yourself. Your mental health is very critical. And you should know that if you want to get the next gig, you should pay attention to your health, because if your health fails today, it doesn't matter how many gigs they bring to you, you will not be able to achieve them. And if your mind is well rested, it is easier for ideas to flow. It is easier for you to get inspiration. But when you are tired, it will be difficult for you to get inspiration for your next design. don't underestimate rest. Please. I'm saying this from the deepest part of my heart. Also, based on the kind of experience that I have had. If you are a designer, learn to prioritize rest. Learn to turn your PC off. Your PC also needs rest. Some of you, your PC has not been off for more than 1 year. Sure, and I'm sure some of you can attest to it. The only thing you do to your PC is to put it to sleep. Maybe you are done designing for the day, so you just press the sleep button and that is it. The next day you are up and running. Your PC has never been shut down for like 2 months, 3 months, 1 year, and it's a very dangerous habit for your PC. So even if um machines need rest, how much more you, the human being, who God has specifically instructed you to rest, right? Rest is so important. I can't um overemphasize the importance of rest, but each and every one of you who is willing to take on a career journey needs to rest. And on that note, I want to say a very big thank you to all of you who have joined the workshop up to this point. My name is Derek, like I mentioned. Um, please don't ignore this email, okay? You can use this email. The new email is creativemark.hello@creativemark.agent. Let me see if I can edit it for you. So my name is Derek, and I have been your facilitator for today. Tomorrow, hopefully, we are going to learn how to use Canva and then Photoshop. And if there is enough time, we are going to learn how to use Canva and Affinity. And if there is enough time, I'll be able to recommend some tools you can use to do your designs without having to break a sweat. Until then, thank you. If there is any question, please feel free to ask. Thank you very much. If you don't have a question to ask, say something. Did I teach well? I need feedback. Did I do well? Did I leave something out? Or I said everything that you needed to hear? What have you learned? What have you not learned? Please tell me something or ask a question. I'm standing by. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Michael, for your comments. Please don't mute, though. Please say something. Say something. Lisa, thank you very much, Lisa. Selwyn, you joined. Have your expectations been met? Where is Faiza to? She has left the call. Bright Ampoma, William Nick, or isn't Ikwe? Rosalind, Peter. Okay. Thank you all for, yes.
Yeah, and thank you for actually
Yeah.
for you to give time to take us.
Your line is not so clear, Bright. Can you please speak up a bit?
I'm saying thank you
Yeah.
for taking us through presentation actually at the and
Great.
then my network was really bad. It was on and off, but I was able to grab certain things, and I'm looking forward tomorrow. Yeah, I'm looking forward tomorrow. You say you will continue with Canva and
An Affinity, yes, we'll be doing Common Affinity. Yeah, right. All right. Thank you very much for your feedback, Bright. And we've recorded this session. It's going to be made available on the SPE Ghana YouTube channel. So you can always go back to it and then refer if you have anything, any question, or if something wasn't clear, you can go over the material. Yeah.
okay.
William, did you want to say something? I see you are unmuted.
No.
Okay. All right. Thank you all very much for your time and for joining this presentation. I'm glad about the feedback I've had, and I hope that the rest of the week is going to be insightful. Thank you, and have a wonderful day. Thank God for an insightful presentation. Thank you. We have ended.
Mm.